I'm joined now by Joe Quaid to talk about Limerick's, 36 points to 123 win over Clare, 10 points in it for a finish. What are your immediate thoughts on that victory? And let's not forget a league title.
Yeah, I suppose we forgot about the league side of it. Yeah, another league title, but look, it was a bit surreal sitting and watching it. No fans, I think the game kind of went that way in the first half. It was kind of more exhibition hurling really than anything. Very loose play. There wasn't Clare seemed up for it a bit more than Limerick. But whatever John Kiley said to him at half time, I think as Daly said there on the telly, championship quarter kicked in, and I think they had 3 points within the first minute of the second half, and they had down the mark that they weren't going to be beaten.
Yeah, it was 5 points in a row actually within 4 minutes of the second half. So even after that initial burst of points, they kept going. And Clare, I mean, Tony Kelly had been unbelievable, so it's harsh to even say it, but he missed three frees then in a short enough period of time, and that could have actually put Clare ahead. But did you get the sense that no matter what happened, that Limerick were always going to respond? Like, they didn't start the game. Like, I thought they'd win by 10 points plus anyway, but I thought they'd have it in the bag from early on. Like, did you always get a sense, no matter what happened here, that Limerick were always going to have an answer?
I suppose it was a small bit of a worry there at half time, was it in him? Because look, teams haven't been together for the last 6 7 months. Haven't played that many challenge matches. Will they get up to the pace of it? Clare seemed to be more up for it in the first half, and I think once Limerick kind of just knuckled down and got their shop in order, there was never really any doubt after that initial 3 point burst in the first minute of the second half. I think even when Clare came back to a point, I think Limerick just upped it again.
Yeah, and like Tony Kelly was on fire, scored 17 points between frees and from play. If there was one man beforehand that Limerick had to worry about, it was going to be Tony Kelly. Do you think it was unusual that he was allowed to exploit Limerick so much?
Yeah, it was a bit strange because no one seemed to know, looking at the telly, I suppose, like the rest of us, no one really seemed to know who was picking him up or who was supposed to be picking him up. Um, I suppose the second half he hadn't as much of an influence. And to quote Daly again, when Kelly's going well from play, he's going well under freeze. He was outstanding. To me, he was man of the match. Look, if you're picking a man of the match fairly over the best player on the pitch that day, he'd have to be man of the match. But it would be a worry, obviously, for Clare that what did he get? 16, 17 points?
17,
Do you
yeah.
know, like if you've one man getting that, it's a serious worry for your team.
Do you have a concern for Limerick that the issue with having Mike Casey and Richie English kind of came home to roost a little bit? Because once Kelly went in on the inside, without having, like, that Richie English can kind of mark any guy, whether he's fast or whether he's strong, and same with Mike Casey. Whereas some of the other guys, Dan Morrissey and Barry Nash, were brought in there. They're both really good halfbacks, but bringing him in there against a pacey guy like Kelly, it seemed to create issues for Limerick.
Yeah, look, it was a bit of a baptism of fire at cornerback for Barry, at championship level. But look, it is a worry. It's probably the biggest worry we have in Limerick, that you've not only one gone out of the line, but you've two gone out of the line, and you've really no ready-made replacements. Like as you said, we to move what I would consider Dan being one of the best halfbacks in the country, having to move him back to full back. Barry Nash did all his holding up till probably last year in the forwards. Then they moved him back to wing back. And look, I said it to one of the lads there last night. We were chatting about the match, and I said probably cornerback is next to goalkeeping the most specialised position on the pitch. Um, and it did come home to roost a bit today a few times, even for the goal. Two lads going up, that probably would never happen with there. But I suppose, look, if you come out with that kind of a victory, it's stuff that John Kiley can work on.
What are the real positives you saw? I mean, Grode Hegarty was outstanding at wing forward, and like there were patches last year. I mean, he was unbelievable against Tipperary in the Munster final, and it's a couple of seasons now he's playing at a really top level. He'd be one huge positive I would have seen. So, what are your thoughts on him and maybe other guys who stood out?
Oh, he was definitely man of the match for Limerick. Um, I thought Hennon came into the game well there in the second half. Keenan came into the game. They were just Look, I don't mean to be cocky by this because we weren't. I was genuinely worried at half time, but looking at it the second half, it looked like Limerick just did enough just to keep ahead and then just poured on. Like, they never threatened a goal. I think David Reedy had the only shot really for a goal, and Graham Mulcahy, sorry, two of them that were blocked, but they weren't really goal chances that they tried to work them through. So they seemed happy enough just to keep the scoreboard ticking over.
And what are your thoughts then on Clare? I mean, I'm even just looking over sort of some of the stats I took in the second half, and inside the first 20 minutes of the second half, Tony Kelly was the only person to have a shot, whether it's from play or free, at all. So if he doesn't fire, there's not a whole pile happening there with Clare at the minute.
No, there isn't. And look at David Reedy in centre forward. Like, David Reedy's not a centre forward. David Reedy do his best work at loose play. He doesn't need to be the leader of the attack. They seem to be devoid of any kind of game plan when it came to forward play. It was a case of just hope Tony shows up and gets the ball. Because, as we said there earlier on, I think the full back line was there to be exploited. But you can't have Tony Kelly popping balls over from 60, 70 yards, being inside in the edge of the square, creating and scoring from there. Like, you've only one Tony Kelly. So it was a poor performance. Like, the brother and Channer didn't really use him as far as I was concerned. He was kind of in and out. You know, he's probably a man that you probably need to leave himself and Shane O'Donnell at the edge of the square and try and exploit that. I just saw one clip there from behind the goals there in the second half, and it showed Dan had actually moved out. He wasn't. They tried to leave Shane O'Donnell in one-on-one him, but I think it must have been Sean Finn. I think that picked him up in there. So, but look, that's down to a lot of it's down to delivery. You can be very hard on corner forwards and that particular, and you know, if the delivery is not there. But you look at the work rate that was there. Seamus Flanagan came on. He collected a ball just outside the 21. Graham Mulcahy, the same. Kyle Hayes and Gerard Hegarty spent an awful lot of the game in the second half, either in midfield or their half back line. But Limerick have just got such a transition from defence into attack that it's very hard to cope with.
Do you have any initial thoughts on the match against Tipperary now next weekend? There could be an element that Limerick blew out a bit of dirty petrol, especially in that first half, whereas Tipperary, much like the rest of us, they may not actually know where they're at.
Exactly, it could take the first half next week to get out that dirty petrol out of the tank. Look, it's a very strange championship season. Look, I'm delighted that we had an option to sit down today and watch matches. Is it a real championship? I don't know. I'd say you'll have to ask the players at the end of the year. Like, you imagine Limerick winning that match there, fans coming onto the pitch, the excitement. When the match blew up, it was like the end of a training match. Everybody just kind of nodded to each other. It didn't seem to excite Limerick too much, and probably looking at the Clare lads, it didn't seem to damage them too much either.
And in terms of like the scoring rates, we saw a huge scoreline put up between Laois and Dublin last night, and both Matty Kenny and Eddie Brennan were talking about that afterwards. Matty was talking about maybe the lack of atmosphere and pressure and all that kind of stuff leads to it. Even looking at 36 points for Limerick, created 52 scoring opportunities. Clare actually created 35. So do you feel, is it from that point of view, that we're going to see unbelievably high scores throughout?
Yeah, sure. What did Limerick finish up with? 36, was it?
Yeah.
We got the second Westmeath last year for conceding 40 against Cork. So for Clare to concede 36 against Limerick, actually we don't feel too bad. But yeah, the scoring, I definitely think without the pressure of the crowd being in on top of you, the decisions, going against you and the crowd riling it up, and there was a lot of decisions today. I know I'd say would have driven the crowd absolutely nuts with hand passes, over carryings, and I'm not saying Ferdy was wrong. A lot of the time he was right, but that kind of adds to the atmosphere of the match. That adds to the, when Clare got the goal, I actually didn't see it the first time. I was looking down on my phone, and next minute I see Clare got a goal before the television had hop off the stand with the crowd roaring and stuff. So it's a strange championship. As I said, the proof of the pudding and how much it meant you'll need to ask the players when it's finished.
Okay, well look, looking forward to the Munster semi-final next weekend all the same. Thanks very much for joining me, Joe Quaid.
No bother, Shane.